First off, we know there has been a system put in place. You basically have the powers that be taking over the consciousness of the planet, taking over the control. So that's what it's about. You have to understand time itself is about control. It's about taking away freedom. Plain and simple, to take you out of natural law, universal law, to put you in a control system. Anything that has time put to it is a mechanism of control. It basically takes away your freedom. Why? Because you are now relegated. You are now under the control of that time. Plain and simple. You have to be there at that specific point. So freedom is an illusion. This is why everybody says that. It doesn't exist. No such thing as freedom in a society when the society is ran on time, meaning you are not truly free. At some point, you have to be somewhere. Plain and simple, as long as you are under the control of the system. So with the ancients and the animals, it wasn't about a specific point in time. It was about the system. It was about nature, the way everything was supposed to be. Everything just was. No matter what you do or what you say, the sun is going to rise and it's going to set. Plain and simple. The oceans will move, the tide will be high, the tide will be low. No matter what kind of number, no matter what you do, that's not going to change. That's a constant. It will continue to happen. Now, if you put a name to it, put a title to a specific moment, you are creating time. This is basically what they did. They said the sun is at its highest point. We're going to call that noon. Now that is noon. Once you do that, now you can create a system and things relative to that point that we call noon. It has a name now. Everything is tied to this point. Now, anything you tie to that specific thing is under your control. Who is controlling time? Your watches. Our watches we call it time. It's not telling us time. We are basically slaves to it. We are basically abiding by it. We are under its control. This watch is good because it's synced with other watches. That's synced to another watch. That's synced to the master watch that we all agree is time. It's just that simple. We all agree that this is the right time. You turn on your TV, you say, okay, I want to make sure my time is correct. What we do, we go look on the internet, we go look at the news, and we all agree that that is real time. Our time is right because it's set to the news time. And we go about our life based upon that understanding. We are just, it's like the money system. We are in agreement that the money is money. It's just paper, but we all agree that it's money. It's the same thing with time. We are in agreement that it is this specific time, and at this specific time, something is supposed to happen. Whether it's natural, sun rising and setting, or something given to us like the game about to come on, power about to come on, or what have you. Then now we are on that schedule, which is why they call it scheduling your programming, your regularly scheduled programming, because they're programming you on schedule at these specific times. These are not plays on words, plain and simple. It's called programming. So the whole notion of the time thing, what I touched on before, is going back to Saturn, Kronos, who is the god of time, which is also Satan. When you understand, Satan is time. And it's how you put everything in sync with this system and begin to understand what this stuff really is about. So again, materialism. You have a materialistic world that is controlled by these corporations and companies. Their logo, as I talked about, a lot of these logos have to do with Saturn, Illuminati, what have you. And it's all time and matter controlling it. Time controls matter. We are matter. It's all one big thing rolled into one when you begin to understand it. So you have these corporations that we all work for, or what have you, and they have us under these schedules to produce material, to produce something that's going to contribute to this materialistic world that's going to take away from us time. It's going to cost us time. So time itself, and this is where everybody has it confused, has a dual nature that is not a dual nature. It has a dual nature to where I always talk about time does have a dual nature, meaning it can go up, down, back, forward, what have you. In this instinct, you have time that is controlled by man, controlled by the powers that be, and the time that is basically a power that is basically what causes us to age. And they understand that this is the secret that you're not going to find nowhere else. Nobody else is talking about this. I always say that time is a construct, that it is a creation. It is not dualistic, because I'm right. It's really not, because when you really begin to understand, the time that we agree is time doesn't exist. And this is where we basically get into the whole Saturn moon thing, what a lot of people talk about our moon basically broadcasting this fictional reality that I call time. And a lot of people are not making that connection to what it really is. How you really get into this thing is touching on energy itself and touching on what's here, what exists, and how it's been here for a long time. So one of the things that's very easy for us to see is the fact that you have trees, rocks, that's organic. A rock is living, whether you understand it or not. But these things can live thousands of years, thousands. And I talked about how trees create their own negative ionosphere, which is why they can live thousands of years, as long as you don't cut them down. In some cases, you cut them down, they'll grow right back. And we as humans have this infinite energy that we know exists, that regenerates us every single day, that heals us. So the implications is, why is it that we cannot continuously heal the way we heal a cut, the way we heal, a minor bruise, or even a freaking gunshot wound heals? Why can't we continuously heal and keep this process going, forever? If we have this energy to heal that is infinite, that we see has real effects on the body, that really heals the body, why can't we keep this process going? And this is why it gets into this whole matrix, this whole Saturn moon power thing that many people are touching on. Something that really has to do with our energy and it being withered down over time. It's not so much, our energy itself being withered down, but our bodies that is housing the energy. So they have basically effectively figured out a way to age matter, to really affect matter, and to have it dissipate over time. So that is the effect of time. But time as we know it, that we tell time and we talk about and we schedule, is non-existent. It does not exist. For what? For what reason would you want to know what time a program comes on? So there's always a reason when time is involved, and the reason is controlled by a something, a person, a thing. So as I said before, if I wanted to know how long it's going to take you to finish eating your food, for what? The hell I want to know that for? I have to have a reason. So the reason is basically from me. So now I'm controlling the situation with my reason for whatever motive I may have. I might want to know how long it's going to take you to finish eating because I want you to go somewhere with me or do something for me. So there's always a reason and a motive behind the reason. Why else would we ask the question? What is the point of the why? What is the point of the question? So with time, this is what we are introducing when we bring in the concept of time. And we are making everything that's conducive to this time slave to us, to the suggestion, to the situation. So it's the reason behind it all. What is the reason? As I said, to control, to take away freedom. And you have to look at the system and step back. And it's definitely crazy when you pay attention to how everything is put on these schedules to control this cycle that we call life. And it's really deep in ways I'm going to talk about that a lot of people don't get. And if we knew how deep this stuff is and how important it is for us to really take control of our, freedom, not time, really, our freedom, then we'll see that the effects of time can be bypassed by consciousness. Plain and simple. And they know this. They understand it. And I'm going to prove it. I'm going to try to prove it. But it's kind of sort of ways we can look at a couple things to see how the effect of time, as far as the power of it, that it's causing aging, that it's causing things to die, that it's causing death, is a construct. It is a creation. So now, when you take it back to the Bible and you put it together about time, death, Satan, make the connection. So time, death, Satan, death, Chronos, God of time, death, Satan, all in one. It's all the same thing. So when you understand, at some point eventually, because of time, you're going to die. Satan deals with death. Satan deals with time. Satan is the God of this world, controlling the time. Everything is put there for a reason to get you to understand this fact. And as we go forward, you'll understand how it really fits in to the way we are living this life right now. And we also have, remember, the Grim Reaper dealing with Chronos, dealing with Saturn, Satan, the Grim Reaper, death. All this stuff goes right into our everyday life, time itself. So the system as we know it, you're born into the system, you are put in school, go to school at a certain time for a certain amount of time. You graduate. You go back into the world to contribute back to the system. Plain and simple. We have our graduations. When you graduate college, graduate high school, you get this square of Saturn, that's always talk about, acknowledging you're on the path of Chronos. You're on the path of Satan. They are controlling all of this. It's in every single thing, as I said before. When you start doing the research, you're going to find Satan everywhere. You're going to find Chronos everywhere, Saturn everywhere. It's in your graduation, boom, which is why I didn't put the Saturn cap on and go down there. I didn't want to participate in the ritual. And all this stuff goes into the same thing. Graduate college, cap and gown, ceremony of Saturn. And now you go on to being able to contribute to the system that's under Satan or Saturn, time that they control. It is not a coincidence that we see the logos resembling Saturn. It's not a coincidence that we see these people seemingly worshiping Satan, worshiping the devil, Lucifer, what have you. They get it. They understand what it's all about. It is simply time and the controller of time that is controlling the system that's controlling us. Plain and simple. So now that you understand that and you start putting everything into context and you understand that, wait a minute, if we didn't have these people telling us to be here, and we didn't have to do these things at a certain time and be here at a certain time and pick this up or watch this or be programmed at this specific time, what would it be? We would be in sync with natural law, universal law. Animals, you think a lion looks at his watch before he goes to hunt. Everything is instinctive. As I talked about before, you can have two lions chasing a buffalo. Next thing you know, buffalo hit the bushes. There's two lions waiting there for him. Ambush. All coordinated without no verbal communication. They are in sync. They understand. They get it. So time, where people will look at it and say, well, without time, we won't be able to do anything. Everything will be out of whack. There wouldn't be any organization. So then you look at the lions and you say, who needs time? That is organized without no watch. When we look at birds flying south for the winter, no watch. They are synced to nature, to the earth, and they understand how things are supposed to be when they're supposed to be. It's a feeling, it's a connection. Time is a construct. It is something put there to disrupt nature, to disrupt the connection. And that's what it's about. Taking us out of the connection to universal law, to natural law, the way things are supposed to be. And we're out of sync with everything. We're not in tune with nothing because we're following time, but time is death. And as long as we follow it, you will die. It's just that simple. Then you have to put on to the simple fact that now they have something that can basically induce the effect of time as we know it. So you take the idea of a time, of something withering away over time, and you put it into physical effect, which is basically what they have done with this moon. In the movie Time Machine, they show the part where the moon is destroyed. And it's not a coincidence that the moon being destroyed is in a movie about time. So if you remember later, when he goes like 800,000 years into the future, you have, after the moon is destroyed, they're basically giving you people living back primitively, like with nature. They had a little bit of technology there, giving you that duality I was talking about before. We usually see, I was talking about with Star Wars, you have a little bit of nature, you have a little bit of technology. It's a balance. It's the way things are supposed to be. But the people was basically living, with nature the way they're supposed to be. The moon was gone. It wasn't that control. Even with Star Wars, when you understand what it's trying to tell you, with Darth Vader representing Saturn, wearing the robe, everything that is Darth Vader has to do with Saturn. And then you have the moon, which is Iapetus, basically wreaking havoc on planets. The moon, the Death Star, Death, Saturn, Grim Reaper, what have you, Death Star, wreaking havoc on planets, destroying planets. It's giving you that Saturn control of a moon controlling planets. So the metaphors is there. There's so much out there pointing at it. It's not out of left field that people is making this connection between Saturn and our moon and reality and time itself. A lot of people think it has to do with the moon broadcasting a certain reality that when you go deeper into it, which we'll touch on this down the line, with the whole reptilian thing I talked about before, how we are a creation. So you have a lot of people looking at it as if we were created simply to perceive this reality of materialism. So when you think about it, it kind of goes back into the whole wave function and the whole thing about consciousness collapsing the wave function. So when you are conscious, remember I talked about the whole double slit experiment. When the people was conscious during the experiment, they seen the actual photons, the particles, go through the slits and hit the back of the wall in particle form, solid form. But when they wasn't conscious of the experiment, that the lights or the photons pass through the slits in waves, the way it's supposed to be, without consciousness. So it's giving you the hint that, or the possible reality that consciousness, when it's being perceived as in our conscious state on this planet, is somehow being forced to perceive a certain reality, which vis-a-vis would be the protons, solid form, but the unconscious, the true state, would be the wave. So they believe we have been manipulated to have basically be perceiving this physical reality. Same thing with sleep. When you are sleeping, when you're in the dream, when you become fully conscious that you are sleeping, you immediately wake up. The dream function is collapsed by your consciousness, and that's by design. So it's a lot to get into when you really start thinking about this stuff deeply. I don't want nobody to really think any of that stuff is spooky talk when they're talking about Saturn and everything like that. I mean, it's a thing we really can't ignore because we see it everywhere throughout the ancient world. And we see all the worship of Saturn, the fact that, they could see it. Can't ignore it. It's just something that we have to go with. But when you look at all these things, and, you have the movie Oblivion, the moon is destroyed. I always talk about all the movies that the moon is destroyed for a reason. It's giving us a hint, a clue to something about, the moon affecting us. The whole thing with the moon and the menstrual cycle of a woman, as Maria Gambudis talks about in her books, when that came along, it was change. Mankind was changed. Something changed things. So we have this whole time construct now in a physical sense, as well as in just this control sense. And a lot of people believe that it's the moon that is affecting this actual time. But our consciousness can overcome it. So we go back to ancient Kemet, as we always do. And you look at the fact that you have pyramids all over the world producing negative ions, which, as I said, and as science will tell you, with an abundance of negative ions in the atmosphere, it will kill every single virus, all bad bacteria, everything that is causing us to age, giving us the ability to not only meditate better, but to live longer. Plain and simple. So when you understand that fact, you have pyramids everywhere. This is what they was producing. Now they are gone, and now we are subject to time. I want to challenge you, and I've been to Egypt many times, to go to Egypt or go online, find me a hieroglyph of an old ancient Egyptian. You can't find it. Can't find it. Two things I look for: picture of an old ancient Egyptian and a fat ancient Egyptian. Those are two things you will not find. And you got to think about that and what was going on around that time and what they were able to do. Now, we're not saying that they was immortal. They obviously could be killed. There was obviously different rulers that took the throne throughout the dynasties. A lot of them were killed or died in war. It's not too many of them we can find that died of natural causes when you read. So that's something to think about as well. This is ancient. This information is ancient. These people we're talking about, going all the way back to the conquest of ancient Kemet, it's the same people today, the same powers that be. There's no way no regular normal person will follow a plan for so long, and not be there. Why would you dedicate your entire life to a plan you would never see come to fruition unless you're going to be around to see it come true? Something to think about. Also, when you look at the Book of the Dead, Ani's Book of the Dead, or even Hunefra's Book of the Dead, they are not old. When you look at the whole depiction of any of the books of the dead, you look at the person that's going through judgment, they are not old. They are not, withered away and old. It's something you have to pay attention to when we're talking about the effects of time. Did it affect them differently? How was they able to sustain those forms and not be super feeble during the end? What was really going on? It's a big secret, something that they're hiding, a lot they're hiding about ancient Kemet. It's one of the reasons why I always study it and I keep going back, because there's so much there to see. That is one of the mysteries, because you just don't see it. But, as I said, we can't look at it and just, shoo it. We got to really think about that. Book of the Dead, when you're going through Ani's Book of the Dead, Hunefra's or whoever's, you don't see old age. You just don't see it in any of the reliefs from ancient Kemet. So, we look at that. We look at the whole aspect of the biblical part of Saturn, Satan, and how that deals with death and everything like that. So when we know we're touching on Satan, we got to go into the Bible and see what the Bible says about time. And of course, you have Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 that's basically giving you a whole bunch about time. And we also have Psalms 90:12. It says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." And there are many Bible verses that's giving you the opinion. It's giving you basically the teaching of time being a must, a good thing. Time, you must take it in. Time is this. Of course, it's going to promote time, because time is Satan. Time is something that they want us to be subject to, and we got to look at it as it's God's time. You hear people say that, we on God's time. It's God's time. Of course, it's God's time. Satan controls this world. Time controls this world, controls us. So you put all that stuff together. But what I want you to get out of it and understand, you have that very whole thing of time as we are perceiving it, which is non-existent. And you have the effect of what we think of as time, but it is being pushed into our consciousness so that we perceive it a certain way, and we manifest that onto ourselves. Because that's exactly what we're doing. So let's go a little bit deeper into this whole thing. The whole, physics or quantum physics of it, to get into it. It's deep. So when you think about this world, physical, this solar system that we in, all this physical stuff that we can see and perceive with human eyes, and with the technology that we're able to use now to also, see with human eyes, because no matter what we create, we're still going to look through it or use that technology with human eyes. So it's still only but so much we can perceive, even with technology. It's just going to be some things that you can't see with human eyes combined with machinery, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So let's just understand, one, you have atoms. Everything is atoms. And I talked about how atoms are slowed down when, we should be able to hand pass through our hand pass through all this physical stuff, but it don't because of the slow vibration that's going on. What's causing that? So when you understand, maybe, this is just theory, that if we go outside of this universe or outside of this, solar system and go further, that we would get to a point of energy. And it's what they call dark matter. Remember, we are only a small slither of the entire universe, and we can only perceive that slither. When you get into dark matter, we don't know what it is. We have no clue. So if we take that as it being, because darkness is light, as it being energy, the way things are supposed to be, the true form of things. And this slither was created for exactly what it is, what we perceive in this physical universe. So in that context, you take time, and time being what is possibly slowing this vibration, this frequency down to a point where we can perceive it. So our consciousness has been somehow tricked and forced to basically survive in this materialistic universe. And we are in these bodies surviving. It's a symbiotic relationship that our energy has with the body. And in order for it to exist, the body has to be right. It has to rely on the physical. So this perception that we're seeing of this physical world, our subconscious, our consciousness is being tricked to perceive it and to have to deal with it, plain and simple. So now the whole trick is for us consciously to understand what's going on and to basically wake up from it, to, as we say, Kundalini rising and open a third eye, and to become aware of everything so that we can escape the cycle of reincarnation into the physical, and we can leave and go forward to, the real universe, what's really going on. So basically what I'm saying is, think about it. If consciousness creates energy, energy creates atoms, atoms creates the elements, these elements come together to make up physical matter, us, the whole nine. If consciousness is the start of it, and we are consciousness, our energy is consciousness, we are consciousness as well, what is stopping us from simply controlling the material, since our consciousness once created it? And again, we know we don't have that connection, we don't have the knowledge to do so. So that's basically what it is. We're being tricked to perceive this material. And since our consciousness has been given a perception of time, because we grow up, we learn about time, we learn about things happening over time. Our brain is bombarded with the succession, the rise and fall of things, people growing old, people dying, things dying. That is all programmed into us. And then we then program it onto our physical self to understand that as each day passes, we age. We start seeing it on TV, we start perceiving it, we start taking it in, we start seeing our friends get old, we start seeing our actors and what have you get old and die. And that perception we take in and manifest it onto our physical self. And that's time, plain and simple. So when I was talking about going back with the ancient Egyptians, this perception wasn't there. Now, it's a simple way to almost sort of prove this, as I said I would try to do. We have to look at autism. And I have my best friend, his son is autistic. He is aging so slowly. And it's amazing to me. It's just like, wow, how old he is versus how he looks, like a little boy still. And we go back and we look at the fact that, one, that's how it used to be. Go back to the 80s and 90s. These movies wasn't out that's out now. This kind of content that's out wasn't out now. It started to really come late 90s. And we see how what we took in mentally changed us physically.